Welcome back to Fun Master Mike's YouTube Secrets, and today I'm going to talk to you about a little idea that I've never ever discussed in any of my ChessKid videos. You can only find out about it right here on YouTube. Hopefully you're subscribing because you're so excited. Cost you nothing, makes me a very happy man. That is using the enemy pawn to shelter your own king. Now this comes up in a variety of openings. One of the most common times that comes up is in the king's Indian defense. And if you take a look at this amazingly complicated chess position in front of you, white has just stepped the king to the side, and white is hoping for pawn takes pawn, which would actually be a massive mistake because white will never ever capture this pawn back. That's right, white is actually using the enemy pawn to protect his own king. Now, why can it sometimes be better to use an enemy pawn to shelter your king? Because no matter how many times black attacks this pawn, we have this little rule in chess: you can't take your own piece. But Fun Master Mike, there's a variant on chess.com where you're able to do that. Great, go play that variant, because that's not what we're teaching. We're teaching regular chess. Even if black's queen gets to the h4 square, it doesn't matter. You can't take your own pawn in chess. So white would actually be very happy to just leave that pawn on h2. And as long as white didn't allow a knight to get to g3 or anything, which I don't think white's going to do, you know, white's got a bishop, they can keep an eye on that square. White is just better in this position. So black, who, oh, by the way, goes by a name Hikaru Nakamura, ever heard of him? Yeah, he kind of understands how to play the King's Indian. So he knows that idea. He didn't need Fun Master Mike's YouTube Secrets for that. Instead, he kept the pawn tension. After all, if white ever takes, we will take back, and then when the queen gets to h4, it's game over. Also, Nakamura has an idea. By not taking, if he ever moves this knight and gets his queen to h4, it's big trouble in little white person land, okay? In this position, if you ever try to push, I've got a sacrifice coming, and I don't want to be the white player, okay? Now, let me show you how Nakamura finishes this off. After bishop back, a couple more moves, I'm just going to kind of fast forward. He actually goes after the g2 pawn. Now, remember I just told you you can use an enemy pawn to guard your king? You can't use an enemy knight to guard your king. I've never really seen that. Knights can go backward after all. So Nakamura says, thank you very much, I'm taking your g2 pawn. And if the king decides to take back, well, then things like rook to g7 are happening. This pawn is mobile. There's even some positions where I could see Nakamura sacrifice the bishop, and when the king takes, you could play g2, and then that king he's left out in the cold. Yeah, he missed his flight back home, and he's not getting back home. Okay, so all kinds of fun things are going to happen if you take that knight. Well, fun things if you're Nakamura, that is. Okay, so in the actual game, we had pawn takes pawn, and you know Nakamura's queen is now double attacked, so he's going to save the queen, right? Nope. Knight takes e1. And look at this, because he kept the pawn on g3, if his queen is captured and white promotes to a queen, black has 0 queens, white has 2, and yet black gives checkmate. That would be an all-time ending. That would be cool. We probably could have made a video just about this entire game. Okay, so if we go back, clearly that's not what's happening after knight takes e1. The queen took the knight, but Nakamura says, I like that checkmate so much, I'm gonna see about making your king come out in the open. Then he plays rook check, king back, bishop to h3. Uh-oh, now bishop to g2 is similar to the pawn mate, but it's like a big pawn, it's a bishop. Bishop f1. Now take a look here. What does Nakamura do? This bishop is the key to white's defense. So that's all for our queen anyway, because our name is Nakamura. A queen to d3, love it. If the queen is captured, we have ourselves check and mate at the same time. Some would say that's the goal of chess. Uh-oh, but queen takes is a big problem too, so you can't exactly get rid of the bishop. You'll still get mated. So white decides to play knight takes e5. You got to guard f3 somehow, but then Nakamura just wins the fort. He leaves his queen hanging for the third time in the game. You don't need me to tell you now what happens if the queen's captured. G2 is the key checkmating square. So after queen takes, Nakamura says, I'm going to win all your knights. And after queen takes, Nakamura is ahead in material and went on to win the game. You might think, oh, white's getting back on material after promotion. But after takes and takes, queen to e6, and in this position, white decided to resign. Now, why is white resigning? Well, the rook is in danger. Obviously, you guys can see that. And what happens if the rook simply just moves? Well, let's give the rook a safe move. If the rook moves all the way back, Nakamura could just take this pawn, right? and just have multiple queenside pawns coming down the board, which, by the way, he's still up a knight. And also, don't sleep on this idea. Knight takes pawn could be an idea one day. I'm just so excited about the checkmate on the light squares. I just want to get that in. So white is completely lost in this position, even though he won one of the rooks back. And there you go. You can use an enemy pawn to your advantage if you do it in the right way. But of course, if your opponent knows about that idea, he may not let you do it. There you go, another Fun Master Mike YouTube secret. If you like what you saw, send Nakamura some fan mail, but also hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.